Day 5. Release. After another restless night, we awoke to a calm, bright sky. Fortune had smiled on us, and this was the day we would complete our mission. If we returned with our pulks or in them, we would place the flag atop Sighing Peak today. We could see the foot of Tom and the way we had come, looking so benign in the gentle breeze and sunshine. We could see the ice cliffs and Webb Island. We could see across to the mainland, and there in the distance our quarry, Sighing Peak. Sighing Peak is not a particularly difficult climb, nor is it particularly high, standing but 600 meters above the fjord. It is its delicious inaccessibility that makes it a formidable challenge. A man must cross the fabled crevasse fields of impenetrable doom before he stands at its foot. Many have tried, few have returned. Mr. Wake was happy with the contrast, and we made all possible haste to rope up and proceed out into the slot fields of death. Without the heavy pulks at our backs, we made fantastic speed across the expanse between camp and the peak, but it was not long before we were crossing crevasse after crevasse. We crossed a couple so large they would have swallowed us both before Mr. Wake had even reached the other side. When probing a seemingly rock-solid snow bridge, Mr. Wake's pole pierced through it into the darkness, and he heard a zing as the icicles fell from the roof into the chasm below. Mr. Wake wasn't happy. Well, dear diary, I wasn't exactly ecstatic myself. Mr. Wake sagely suggested we go above it, to where it was narrower and more robust. I eagerly seconded the motion. After a short period of lateral travel, with Mr. Wake probing at regular intervals, he found a narrow but deep snow bridge for us to cross. And after many hours of trepidation, expecting to be dangling on the end of a rope down a dark hole at any moment, we arrived at the foot of Sighing Peak. We quickly exchanged skis for crampons and began our slow but steady ascent. On our way up, Mr. Wake put his foot through into a small bergschrund. It was tiny, but enough to remind us that this innocent-looking hill still had some surprises, and we were a long way from home. Up and up we marched, into the peak's strange and misleading snow features. Due to its position jutting out into the sea, it possesses the most precarious cornices and bizarre snow shrooms I have ever seen, all covered in a delicate crystal garden of hoarfrost. We trudged on. After the voyage across the crevasse fields, our thighs burned with each step we took towards the summit. We barely had the strength to ram in our crampon spikes, but as we moved up, our resolve strengthened, even as our legs grew weak. The view out across the mountains of the mainland was breathtaking, and it spurred us on. Looking down, the frozen waste of the sea stretched out below us, with the statuesque icebergs inert and immobile in its grasp. With each forlorn step, the summit seemed to be getting no closer, until, as if by happy happenstance, we rounded a steep-sided shroom, and there we stood, at the summit. Realization of a dream, completion of a mission can be such an anticlimax. We stood taking in the view for a short while, and then became slightly bored and cold. The peak was claimed, the flag was placed, and we sat down for a well-earned spot of tea. As we finished our Earl Grey, Sighing Peak let out less of a sigh than a roar. The wind came from nowhere with no warning, pushing us to our knees. It seemed this lonely, reclusive peak does not suffer intruders gladly. What should have been a gentle descent turned into a hideous, dangerous scramble with gusts threatening to rip us off the slopes. We took the hint and did not loiter. Mysteriously, as soon as we had made our way down, the freak weather disappeared. We were once again gifted with glorious sunshine and easy tracks to follow back to camp as, behind us, the setting sun projected the shadow of Sighing Peak far out into the fjord. Day 6. return to safety. The news of our success greatly pleased Her Majesty. In fact, Her Royal Highness herself spoke to us over the radio, and we were greatly honoured.
Hi guys, back again!
With our mission complete, we could make the best of the good weather and return to the safety of the Southern Stokes. We packed the camp into the pulks, strapped them to ourselves once again, and with one last look over our shoulders at Sighing Peak, we started our return journey. Crossing back over the ground that could so easily have been our graveyard only days before was a humbling experience. It made one appreciate how seemingly safe terrain can be turned into a nightmare at the will of the gods. Our journey this time involved a great deal of uphill slogging, but rather that than the precarious downhill sliding of our outward trip. We had planned for this leg of the journey and our inevitable exhaustion in advance. We arranged for British base members from Sledge Charlie to leave a depot base for us to recuperate in. We are extremely grateful to them as they kept up a steadfast vigil over our progress from the other side of the Stokes. I am told they spent their time climbing the same small hill again and again to relieve the boredom waiting for news of our success. Day 7. Rotherham bound. We spent a pleasant night under N2. From the doorway of the tent we could see the caboose at Val's and Stork Ridge. Again in the morning we broke camp, strapped on for our last push back to Rotherham. On our return journey there were more adventures with crevasses and a troublesome incident involving a dragon, but those are stories for another day. Suffice it to say, we eventually returned to Rotherham just in time for tea and medals. Adelaide Island was one step closer to being secured for the Empire, and it was all due to the brave actions of one man and his dog. The end.